Alright everyone, welcome to the final of Devastation, Prism vs. Chane. My name is Kieran and I'm here with Newson doing the commentary today.
Well, Kieran aka Mr. Classic,
Community given nickname,
Yeah.
sure. But I think this is going to be a very exciting matchup. I'm pretty happy to see we've got, two of what you might say are almost the headliner heroes of Monarch in Chane and Prism. And I think this will be very interesting for players. I think a lot of people, for Prism in particular, have been sort of trying to work out what exactly is the correct build to play, and they're probably wondering what the matchup with Chane is like.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping we get quite a good game here.
So I do feel like Jason is a bit disadvantaged because his deck only runs one 6 power, which is Soul Reaping, and Karol's deck is mostly built around hitting with heralds and so on to utilize. So I feel like Jason will have a hard time blocking certain heralds and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's a really good point, because the downside of Prism, you have all these undercosted attacks, but they do have that phantasm that you're alluding to, where they are destroyed if your opponent defends with a 6 power or more card. So yeah, we'll see if that presents a bit of an issue for Jason here. If Karol is able to maybe put him under a bit of pressure with these really powerful phantasm attacks, or if Jason, has a bit of a strategy cooked up to deal with this, because obviously with Chane, the soul shackles and banishing, your turns seem to get stronger and stronger as the game go on.
I feel like Jason's game plan will be trying to race him, I guess. Just let the damage go through and then just do more damage on his turns and so on. So here we go.
Yeah, and we see Jason's got the Aether Ironweave and the Ebonfold here. So the Aether Ironweave, no Carrion Husk, no fear.
No, Carrion Husk could be really good here. Carrion Husk can block one of Karol's attacks when needed. But yeah. I guess Jason has taken the route of he wants more bigger turns. To the 2 extra resources is more important than the defending for 6.
Okay, we see Karol's playing Luminaris here. So he's going for that Luminaris build, allowing you to play multiple really strong phantasm attacks, because if you have a yellow pitch card in your pitch zone, your attacks have go again, illusionist attacks. And just note on the equipment, we can see Karol's chosen to go with the Fyndale Spring Tunic and the Goliath Gauntlet. Probably, like you were mentioning, he doesn't feel the need for Dreamweavers here, because he's got a pretty good idea that Jason isn't running many of those 6 power cards.
So with the playstyle right now, I feel like Karol playing Norin Hood indicates that he won't be defending much because he is running Goliath Gauntlet instead of Arcane Knight's Skullcap, which is a pretty defensive card.
Yep, that's a good point. We see Jason just immediately go for the Shadow of Ursa, choosing to banish a red bounding Demagon. So that Shadow of Ursa does have go again.
So Jason's committing a few cards first turn.
Yeah, looks like he's going to create a Soul Shackle here. If he pitches a blue, he'd be able to, or even a yellow, he'd be able to use that Grasp of the Arknight to generate a Rune Chant, and then come in with a bounding, potentially.
Just like you said, Karen.
Actually, no, well, he does need to play non-attack action in order to play that bounding Demagon for banish, so it looks like...
I think he's just sitting up for a bigger turn next turn or the turns after.
Yeah, more than happy to just take the Blood Debt and lose 1 life there. Okay, now it will be interesting to see as well whether Karol's running sort of some of these anti-chain cards, things like Snag, I think is a really big one to stop those big Riftbind turns. Okay, and so it looks like he's pitched a yellow Wartune Herald to come in with a blue Wartune Herald for 5. So this attack does have go again due to Luminaris.
Yep.
And here we see the sort of power of this Prism, Stompy style build, just 1 resource, 5 damage, go again.
So I thought Jason just takes the hit, and Karol coming in with an Illuminate.
So red Illuminate, that feels like it's pretty good here. So it's hitting that sort of breakpoint of 4.
Yep.
Forcing Jason to either, defend with 1 card and let the damage through and also go into Soul, or just take all the damage. And like you mentioned, it looks like Jason's strategy is very much the race here.
Yes, just taking 9 damage. Ooh,
Okay, so banishing Art of War from the Soul Shackle. Now, Art of War, it's quite a critical card, isn't it, in this matchup?
You never want to banish Art of Wars. Art of Wars is one of the cards that make your turns very explosive.
Okay, and we see the Soul Shackle in order to play the Tome of Torment. So Jason's up to a 5-card hand, and he does have that bounding Demagon in the banish zone, and he does have an Art of War in hand.
So it's going to be spicy.
Okay, so it looks like he's gone for the Art of War. Choose to banish a second Bounding Demagon.
Okay. But it does not look like but he has played Tower of Torment, so those Bounding Demigons are live.
Yeah, now we're not sure if he's chosen Go Again or +1 to his attacks here.
I do feel like it's +1, just by the way he put the dice on Art of War.
Yep.
On one, so. Ooh.
Okay, so now we see him play the Dimensional Gateway, so it allows him to opt and then sort of set up which cards he wants on top.
Yeah, this card is very strong.
I believe that's a red Dimensional Gateway as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So going for the the strongest version or the most resource intensive version. And Karol's just sort of sitting there saying, "Okay, what have you got for me?"
Do you feel like Karol this turn he will be defeating much, or we in for a good race?
He does have a 10 life lead, so that might play into his decisions there. But I think so he's got 1 arcane damage coming in through the Dimensional Gateway. Now Karol is 10 life ahead, but I think he is aware that Chane can build up these really big turns that are very difficult to defend. So that 10 life lead might not last for too much longer.
Mm.
And it looks like he's banished a blue Refined off that Dimensional Gateway. So I would note now that he's played 2 non-attack actions this turn, the Time of Torment and the Dimensional Gateway. So that Refined already has +2.
Coming with Shadow Ursa, banishing another Riftbind.
Okay, and we saw Karol elected to take the 1 arcane damage there from the Dimensional Gateway. So I do wonder if he's going to also take the Rune Chant arcane damage here.
Oh.
Okay, so the Arclight Sentinel comes down. So he is taking the one Rune Chant damage, and he's choosing to defend against that Shadow of Ursa. Now this is quite a cool play here, because he does see Jason has 3 cards in his banish zone. He's going to use one of the Bounding Demigons to get rid of that Arclight Sentinel, but he is going to take 3 damage here. Although in saying that, Karol will be happy that he managed to shut down a lot of that turn, but now he is facing down 2 Refines in the banish zone, and I feel like that's pretty scary.
Yeah. I think Karol wanted to see the Arclight Sentinel a bit later, where it's more crucial when Jason's on less life.
Okay, so now we see 4 Refines in the banish zone. So now I feel Karol's going to start to get a little more worried here. If we look at Jason's hand, he's got the Sonata Arcanix, so he's just going to play that for 0 to reveal the top 3 cards.
And he misses.
And he misses. So he does miss. That's not ideal, but he does, he is representing 1 arcane damage. I did see in his hand, Jason also has a Seas of Agony and a Gorganian Tome. So that's already 3 non-attack actions, which are going to pump all those refines up by 3.
Yep. Oh, second. This one will not be missing.
Okay, so he's got another Riftbind into hand. So we see he does have access to that Ebonfold. May not necessarily need it just now, but that can be very good with cards like Riftbind in order to get off these really big turns when you need them.
I think I'll be saving Ebonfold later, just because he does have 4 Riftlines in the banish zones.
Yep. Okay, so the Gorganian Tome, so that's non-attack action number 3 for those keeping count at home.
We drew Seeping Shadows.
Okay, so we might potentially see that Seeping Shadows come out, depending on his resources, in order to go again to one of his attacks to get out multiple Riftbinds this turn. Okay, so we see this Seeds of Agony come down, so that's 4 non-attack actions. Oh, Moverian Skies. Okay, so not only is it a non-attack action, but that's going to have Jason's next Runeblade attack go again.
Coming for a big turn.
So that's 5. That Refine's coming in for 8, I believe. So that's 8 with 1 arcane damage. And bear in mind, Jason still has not used the Soul Shackle this turn, I believe.
And he still has access to the Snapdragon Scalers.
So he could play potentially all 3 of those Riftbinds if he wants to here. And just like that, creates a Rune Chant off the Moverian Skies as well. So now you wonder if Karol's, kind of wishing he had that Arclight Sentinel.
Yeah, the thing was when you use Arclight Sentinel that turn, he let Jason have a free cards in his banish zone. Sure, Jason takes 3, but then Karol can't do anything on his turn, and therefore Jason's playing with sort of like 4 cards in hand, and then five cards banished from his Soul Shackle ability, which is what, a 9-card hand. So
not too shabby. So he chose actually to use that Ebb and Fold quite aggressively, banish the Seeping Shadows in this case. Now he does have 1 resource available, so you're thinking he does have access to that Aether Ironweave, so that's representing an additional 2 resources. You wonder if you might be looking to get all 3 of those refines off here, and even like follow it up with a Bounding Demagon, or if you might want to preserve some for a later turn. So it looks like he's playing out the yellow refined here, which has +5, so that's coming in for 7, I believe, plus 1 Enchant.
Yeah. So just to know, Jason did not use his Soul Shackle, opting to use Snapdragon Scales on that refined.
Now that's interesting. Do you wonder why he used the Snapdragon Scalers instead of opting to immediately create the Soul Shackle there?
It's just because I think that he was going to use the Snapdragon Scales anyway, and then in case Karol has something else, like an Arc Light Sentinel, for example, right?
Right, of course.
And then
when you activate the
Soul Shackle, Karol can respond with it, and then that will shut down Jason's turn. But by using Snapdragon Scales, he cannot Arc Light Sentinel that.
So just like that, Karol's down to 13 life. So we've seen another refine come through here.
This is the last one, I believe.
So that's all 4 refines.
Oh.
Well, so just like that, Karol's on 7 life on turn 3.
It's quite impressive turn, and Jason has another Art of War for next turn, which is...
Yeah, so he's got an Art of War, he's got sort of 2 cards in the banish zone, so he can, use any spare cards in his hand for resources. And I feel here he's going to be pretty comfortable with just taking all the damage Karol throws down.
Karol needs a big turn this turn. Oh.
Okay, so the Herald of Judgment, that's quite a good one, because if it hits, it means Jason's not able to play cards from his banish zone next turn.
Yeah, this card basically is... If it hits, the Chane player has a weaker turn, because,
all the cards from Soul Shackles, for example, you're just not able to use.
And that's what Chane utilizes. Utilizes the Blood Debt banish cards that can be played, but if Herald of Judgment hits, that stops him from doing that. So Jason will be blocking quite a bit, especially if he reads there's a pummel.
Yep, that's a good point. And
Karol's hand.
Also things like Shadow of Ursa when you're banishing cards, or Art of War that you're banishing cards, being able to combo those out with Chane is usually a good thing, but Herald of Judgment really just shuts down those plans.
Yep.
Okay, so looks like he's playing it quite conservatively here.
Just does not want that Herald of Judgment to hit.
So it appears he's defending for 10.
Yeah.
So that plays around that
the red pummel.
The red pummel.
That was Karol with that one.
Okay, so Karol there. So it looks like he's pitched within the Chain Link Resolution step to create a Spectral Shield.
Mm-hmm.
So he's pitched a yellow card, which is then giving this Herald of Judgment go again from Luminaris. Because it looks like he pitched a blue card originally there.
Plays Indie G Potion and just passes. So, see Jason, but
oh no!
There you go, another Rift Bind, another Seeds. But it's good for Karol that Jason only has 1 card and it's Art of War. I doubt he will want to pitch it.
Yeah, I mean, potentially he might look to pitch it to keep on pressure here, but at least it's not like Karol's facing down a ton of damage.
Ooh.
Oh, there we go. That Tome of Torment just really shining through, I feel, this game. This is turning on now the Bounding Demagon. And then Jason, could potentially choose to pitch that last card in his hand to play out some more cards.
So I believe Jason drew Shadow Puppetry. There we go.
Okay, so that's a Bounding Demagon coming in for 5 with Go Again plus 1 arcane damage, and if it hits, Jason can reveal the top card of his deck and choose to banish it if he wants to do so. And the thing is here now, Jason also has the option, he may just wish to arsenal that Art of War and save it for next turn, but as far as Karol's concerned, he could be facing down a Rift Bind coming in for 5 right after this.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely puts him in a bit of a difficult position, I feel. Now, Karol does it.
Or even he can pitch Starter Wood and play Nebula Blade for 4 and save the Rift Bind for next turn.
Yep, that's a really good point as well. And that's representing 4 physical damage plus the potential creation of a rune chant.
And since Karol is on 7, he has to...
He's got to defend some of this damage, doesn't he? Because he's facing down 6 damage here, so 5 from the Bounding plus 1 from the Seeds of Agony. So that giant turn early on really has put Karol under a bit of pressure. So I quite like this player defending with the Phantasmal Footsteps, pitching a blue card.
So he prevents the arcane damage and then pays 1 for Footsteps.
And the good thing is here, because Karol has Tunic up, this also gives him the option to use the Tunic plus that remaining resource to create a Spectral Shield if he needs to.
Yep.
Okay, so we see Jason just sort of eyeing up the board, deciding, is it worth it to put pressure on with the Riftbind here? And it looks like he feels it is. I actually quite like this play as well because, from Karol's side, it's very difficult for him to just let this through and take 5 damage here and drop down to 2 life. Yet if he defends with 1 card and still takes 2 damage and goes down to 5, there's not a whole lot he can do with a 1 card hand. Oh wait, sorry, that's actually coming in for 6, isn't it? Because of the Tome of Torment, which I forgot. Yes. So that really kind of pushes it over the edge as opposed to that Nebula Blow.
And Karol does not want to be on 1. So Karol will fully defend it. Right.
Yeah, so he's chosen to defend for 6 here. Yeah. Okay, so he managed to survive that turn, but the problem is once you fall behind when you're playing against Chane, it can be very, very difficult to catch up because Jason has a full hand here and he'll be banishing 4 cards off the top of his deck with Soul Shackle, and he has access to that Seeping Shadows as well, if he has cards that he needs to get rid of. I have a feeling Jason probably won't be defending that Spectral Shield for 1. He's not too worried at this stage.
Oh, another 2 Rift Binds.
Okay, so 2 more Rift Binds and a Bounding Demagon. So, Jason just has plenty of options here to decide what he wants to do. Now, Karol at this point is probably wishing he had something like, a snag on that really big early turn, but...
Well, that snag would have saved him 20 plus damage.
Yeah, and we can see, he played that Arc Light Sentinel quite early, and it did kind of save him on that 1 turn.
But I do feel like the Arc Light Sentinel...
It really set him back a bit, didn't it?
I feel it really backfired on Karol just because it was in his hand. He couldn't really get rid of it. As we know, his arsenal is probably pummel. So he can't get rid of his arsenal card and just arsenal the Arc Light. So he was kind of forced to play it on the early turn, allowing Jason to have a very strong next turn.
Absolutely. And we see, so Jason looks like he's pitched a blue Bounding Demagon here to play that Seeping Shadows. So that's really powerful here because it gives this Bounding Demagon Go Again and +1, I believe.
Yep.
So that Bounding's coming in for 5 with Go Again plus 1 arcane damage from the Seeds of Agony. Now, Karol's got to be really concerned here because he's also facing down, probably 2 more Rift Binds. If Jason chooses to create a Soul Shackle and he comes in with both of those Rift Binds, both of them have at least +2 from the Bounding Demagon and from the Seeping Shadows and the Seeds of Agony.
Yeah. And Jason can play both Rift Binds this turn just because of his he's Sleeping Shadows first, so his Soul Shackle is still available to him. Here we see a Rift Bind.
So we see that Rift Bind coming in. I believe it's a yellow Rift Bind, so that's coming in for 5 here. And just so much pressure on Karol here.
4, you mean, right?
I believe
it got 2 on.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. You're correct. So the Seeping Shadows plus the Seeds of Agony. So that's coming in for 4. Which means this Rift Bind, see, it's great here because Jason has the options, like you mentioned earlier. He can choose to play out that final Rift Bind if he wants to, or simply, attack with a Nebula Blade, or even arsenal that card and wait for next turn.
Yeah, Jason is under no pressure at the moment.
Yep, so it looks like he wants to come in with that, the final Rift Bind for 5. I think, again, that makes a lot of sense here. It just allows Jason to, arsenal that last card, so he's coming in with a full 5-card hand plus 5 Soul Shackles. And that just makes it incredibly difficult for Karol to survive being on 2 life here. So, to Karol's credit, though, he's doing his best to stay in the game. He might be thinking if he can hold out for something like a critical snag or Arc Light Sentinel on a big turn, maybe this will give him an opportunity to turn it around. But, I feel it's going to proved to be quite a tall task.
Just pop in the Goliath. Karol has to put some pressure on, so he's playing Herald of Protection yellow, I think, and it's taken for 8.
Yeah, now I suppose the issue here is, again, Jason, it feels like he just... I was going to say, well, he doesn't care about the damage, but shows how much I know. Choosing to fully defend that out. Okay, so he's missed pretty significantly on that Soul Shackles here. So he does still have the Seeds of Agony and the Seeping Shadows. So I wonder if Jason, during that last turn, he thought, he wants to preserve his life total to allow maximum flexibility on a really big turn to take as much damage as possible.
And to know Jason has used most of his Riftbind and Bounding Demogons this game.
That's true. So that might be sort of one thing for Karol. So we see the Seeds of Agony come in, the Soul Shackle being created to attack in with Nebula Blade. So the Nebula Blade's coming for 4 here. The Seeds is not dealing arcane damage, but Jason would have wanted to use it there in order to, pump up that Nebula Blade. Because he knows here if Karol chooses to defend with 1 card, which is, definitely an option here, I feel, he will go down to 1 life, which makes it a little bit difficult.
Scouting Sentinel.
So choosing to pitch the Arclight Sentinel here to turn on the Footsteps. So he's fully defending that out for 4.
Oh, Ghostly Visit. 4 and over 4.
Okay, and that's the thing. I suppose Karol probably realized there that he didn't want to let that create a Rune Chant at Nebula Blade if it did on hit, because then he'd be facing down, potentially 4 damage plus 1 arcane. So by doing it this way, Karol can defend with 1 card and go down to 1, still threaten some sort of attack on the swing back, potentially. But choosing to just defend with 2 cards here.
Well, he can't really do much with, if he has one of those in his hand, right? So he might as well just save 1 point of damage.
That's a good point. I think it looks like you're probably spot on with that call of a pummel being stuck there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty decent Soul Shackles coming out from Jason here. So we see there's a Tome of Torment, a Seeds of Agony, Rift Reality, and a Blue Riftbind.
So Jason's playing with 9 cards this turn on his
yeah, that's not too bad.
Start with
Dimensional Gateway, so yeah, it feels like a very good card here. Now, one thing I suppose to keep in mind is that Jason is, at this point, no Snapdragon Scalers. He's gone through, I think, a couple of Shadow Puppetries and at least 1 Moverian Skies. So he is a little, limited, I suppose, to 2 actions per turn, which is still pretty decent. But it does give Karol a little bit of window to, defend out with multiple cards each turn and just sort of hold on for dear life, see if he can, cling on and make something happen with a big Arclight Sentinel or snag turn, down the road. But saying that, it's just so much damage coming down there every turn. So Jason, we can see he's got a Seeds of Agony, which he is able to play if he wishes.
It's really rough for Karol just because he's on 2 life and then he has to prevent arcane damage and the physical damage. So he's basically has to pitch a blue every turn to defend the arcane and then use the other 3 cards to defend the attacks, which is very...
And quite a good heads-up play there, I think, from Jason, choosing to use the Soul Shackle to make to use the Time of Torment. Because I feel he knew that if he drew a card, he could pitch a card for resources to play the Seeping Shadow to give him that additional action point anyway. And of course, now at this point, Jason has played, I believe, is that 3 non-attack actions?
And he still has a Seeds in the Banished as well.
Yep, and he's got a Seeds and he has a Riftbind available. So he has a Seeds of Agony in hand and a Seeds of Agony banished and a Riftbind and a Rift of Reality. So there's a lot of potential damage coming through here. Okay, so we've seen Prism be very much on the back foot basically this entire game.
Oh, but look at Jason's deck. It's maybe 1 or 2 turns. If Karol can hold in there, hang in there, he can possibly deck him out.
That's true. So the life totals here, Karol is massively behind. There's no getting around that. He's 20 life behind. He's on 1 life. But he might be thinking, if I can just hold on for at least 1 or 2 more turns, maybe I can make something happen.
I think that's Karol's strategy right now. See if Jason allows that.
So 2 Seeds of Agony coming down. So we can see Karol does have 2 resources available, which is very handy for being able to defend against that arcane damage. But he is going to be facing down a Rift Mine for +5. I believe that's a blue one, so that's coming in for 6.
Just no, it doesn't really matter at the moment that Karol's on 1, but just because this turn he's so shackled into a rip through reality that if Karol does not prevent any arcane damage, then that rip through reality will be active and it will have go again, and it's taken for 4, which is another sort of damage. So it's basically Karol has to defend every sort of arcane damage because of that card.
Yeah, so it looks like, Karol's just chosen to go down to 1. And now this is probably, this is one of the critical turns for Jason. I have a feeling he's probably, been paying close attention to his pitch order. So he has been setting up something for this big turn. We can see the Shadow Puppetry in hand and Sonata Arcanics. Okay, so he has banished the Art of War, but the rest of those cards are looking pretty good. Like you mentioned, that Rip Through Reality is, that secondary effect's never coming online here.
Yeah. Because Karol will be
dead. Okay, yeah, so there's certainly a lot to think about right here. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options on the table. So he's got that Sonata Arcanics, he's got the Seeping Shadow, the Plunder Run, which you can just play from hand. And Karol just sitting there on 1 life, a bit of a sitting duck here. Now, he does have that Tunic resource available, which can be quite good for things like preventing arcane damage or the Phantasmal Footsteps. So that's, effectively saving him 2 life here from the resource, plus being able to defend with the Tunic. But I feel it's going to be a bit of a tall order to defend against this whole turn. But, Jason's certainly thinking, he just knows that I have to get this turn absolutely right, because if I sequence this turn incorrectly, or if I get shot down by something like a snag, then, I've basically gone through my whole deck at this point.
See if Karol can make a comeback, or Jason claim the win and win the Devastation tournament.
Yeah, well,
it comes down to this turn.
It all comes down to this, as it often does in Classic Constructed. I feel there's these critical turns where it's just very important to sequence everything correctly.
That's why you love Classic Constructed, right, Karen?
That's why I love Classic Constructed. Yeah. Okay, is this it? Is this the turn that crowns Jason the winner of the Devastation Challenge? So we see Seeds of Agony blue being played out into a Shadow Puppetry. So that's 2 non-attack actions. Okay, he's got his hand on the Soul Shackle there, but he has played the Shadow Puppetry. So I wonder if he's just sort of counting that out in his head rather than...
Interesting.
Okay, that's...
So you have a...
That is
home?
I guess that is... Yeah, that is your next attack action, isn't it? Gets go again.
Oh, no, he might be wanting to swing with Nebula Blade. Yes, that's right.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So what Jason's trying to do now is basically force a Tunic or a Phantasmal Footsteps defend, and 1 card in Karol's hand.
Right, and then he also has access to that Shadow Puppetry on hit trigger as well.
With go again.
Yeah. I guess that this also prevents, he's holding back information because he's still got 2 cards in hand. So Karol has to play around quite a lot here. So yeah, we may see Karol... Okay, so he's choosing to remove the Tunic counters to generate a resource to block with Phantasmal Footsteps. So he's defended this out fully for 4. The problem is, now we've got a Bounding Demagon coming in. Okay, and I feel Karol's potentially starting to see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
Here. But the Soul Shackle has been used. So it does mean
one more. So there might be one more attack after.
But I suppose, who knows what Jason has. But Karol's probably thinking, I know there's at least one more attack coming. Is there any way I can play around this to survive?
Prevents arcane damage from seeds?
Okay, so he's managed to get through this one. And it's on 1 life with, 1 resource up.
Interesting. Oh.
Now, it does reset the combat chain, so Karol does have access to block with the Phantasmal Footsteps here.
But this Riftbind is coming in for...
Probably way too much damage. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the steeping.
And it's on blue. It's a blue Riftbind, so it's coming in for 6.
Oh, and that's it. It Karol extends the hand, and will we get to see the card announced at all?
Yeah,
you're right.
Right. It's been stuck there since turn 1. It was never able to utilize it, and yeah,
really well played by Jason there to put like a lot of pressure on it. I feel like that huge turn he had early, combined with Karol sort of being forced out into using that Arc Light Sentinel, just really set the tone for the rest of the game. I suppose that goes to show sometimes the importance of decisions on like what cards you want to arsenal very early. You'd often think on Prism putting a red pummel into arsenal is probably a pretty good idea, right? Very early, because you have so many cards that you can use it on. But that did come back to bite Karol a little bit this game. That concludes the Devastation series. A huge congratulations to Jason taking out the tournament on Chane. I feel people are probably going to be watching this and thinking, maybe Chane's a pretty good choice for the upcoming Road to National season, but you never know what's out there in the metagame. That's the great thing. I feel the metagame always shifts, it changes and adapts. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you for everyone watching.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in, everyone, and good luck in your Road to Nationals tournaments coming up.